Malofalava.
Alofa.
Half a day.
Half a day.
Not a whole day, half a day. Took that from Bula Vinaka.
Bula.
Yakwe. Yora.
Yora.
Yorana. Tangata Pacifica. It is so good to see people tonight. Tulo le paia mamalo la fia tulo tangaloa. Tulo le malai o puvanga. Tulo tangata tomba Gabrielino. Tulo the chumash. Tulo the ahashina. These are our relatives. Acknowledge that I am a guest on this land, as we all are, on behalf of my ancestors. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed faculty and administrators, proud parents, saina and elders, the ohana, the kainga, the ainga potopoto, o wo mae masani, friends and relatives, and most importantly, our incredible graduates, the Pacifica class of 2023. Thank you, Creator. Thank you, ancestors. Thank you, Brother Art. I want to thank PIA, the Pacific Islanders Association, at Cal State Long Beach, your advisor, Art Medina, who stopped being my mentee many decades ago, and your Vice President, Nico Reyes, for inviting me and for their grace and kindness in creating space for me to be here today. I'm humbled and grateful for this acknowledgement, Art, on the 32nd year that you're celebrating our graduates. 32 years, y'all. Woo! It's an honor for me and my family and ancestors and my history with PIA. As a Pacifica matriarch, I am a storyteller by blood. So before I go on, I want to take you back 33 years ago. In 1991, in this very room, and Anna probably knows this, 4 Pacifica women, Atelaite Pale, Jan Wamani, Salamasina Fanua, and myself. We were down in the bowling alley, writing up the Constitution and the bylaws for this organization. We were arguing for the creation of appropriate space for Pacific Islanders. We had a strong ally in Associate Vice President of Student Services at the time, Alan Michaud. This was also President Maxon's first season as president, and it was the perfect storm for us to organize and mobilize. PIA was created because the campus climate at the time knew nothing about Pacifica people, except through a social club that mainly did culturally appropriated performances outside the student union and social events infested with plastic leis. That's what we had on the campus back in the 1990s, early 90s. There was no other appropriate representation of Tangata Pacifica, nor space for Pacifica students to claim their existence as students and to allow for their family and their families and ancestors to be seen and be a part of their academic journey. There were no other platforms, absolutely no social media, for us to tell our stories and connect with each other. There were no opportunities for Pacific people our sacred cultures and languages to be seen and heard and appreciated on this campus. So we took the Constitution and bylaws from the bowling alley, we walked it up to the second floor to Dr. Jean Cavanis's office, then the director of the Office of Student Life and Development. The early 90s was a very interesting time for the campus. We had Dr. Maulana Karenga. Anyone familiar with Dr. Karenga? No. Or it's probably the only one in our administrative table. So Dr. Karenga and Dr. Aman Ra, they were at the forefront of Black consciousness and the awakening of agency and self-determination. Kujichakulia in Swahili is what Dr. Karenga would call. It was an important time for Black students reclaiming their Black power. Dr. Karenga is the founder of the Pan-African, African-American celebration called Kwanzaa. He was the creator, and he was a professor on this campus, and we took every class that we could think of that Dr. Karenga offered. He was the center of community, identity, and responsibility and consciousness at the time. The Black Student Union at that time was a political powerhouse with hundreds of members. Maybe not hundreds, but at least it appeared as if they had hundreds. And we wanted to be just like the Black Student Union, hanging out in front of the psych building and just having lots of fun, right? We wanted to be in the same league as the BSU. So our application, we proudly put our name, remember, Black power, Black consciousness. We also wanted to give a nod to the Polynesian Panthers in Aotearoa at the time. So we took our application after a couple of 99-cent Big Macs. Joey, you know what I'm talking about. And we walked it up to Dr. Cavanis, and we decided to name our student club, in all our self-glorified brilliance, the Polynesian Posse. Of course, when our application reached Dr. Cavanis, and she called us in, she smiled very graciously. Everybody remembers Dr. Cavanis. Very gracious and kind, and she said, "Hell to the no." I'm sure in other more professional language, but that's what I heard. So we licked our wounds and took our application home to our families. And many of them suggested that we take it down a notch and create space for everyone, not just for woke radicals, what they call fiopoko in the Samoan language, in other words, smartasses, but a space that centers the entire community and is inclusive in its purpose. And when I say community, I'm not just talking the campus community, the Pacific community. So the lesson here is sometimes our first shot at things won't be spot on. It takes time, allyship, and professional advice, honest collaboration, humility, and sense from those with experience and know-how to meet us halfway in our passion and beliefs in order to accomplish goals. So graduates, you know this because this is your lived experience to obtain the degrees that you're holding today. Had we not gone to our families, we wouldn't have gotten the free advice and centuries of wisdom that they hold to resubmit our application for the Pacific Islanders Association. Not PISA, Pacific Islanders Student Association. PIA, Pacific Islander Association. Yes. I think we're one of the rare university organizations with an inclusive community. The organization was designed for students primarily, for families, The campus infrastructure, which includes faculty, staff, administrators, that infrastructure of support was crucial for us back in the 90s. And I see that it still is today, so I'm very happy to see that. On our very first Pacific Islander graduation celebration, we sent a letter to the late Congressman of American Samoa, LiHang. And we didn't think he was gonna respond, but he responded right away. And he showed up on our first graduation, and that was our BSU moment. That was when we reclaimed our power. When Congressman Mabanga showed up, everyone else showed up because the congressman was on campus for these 4 students that were just hanging out. So, Dr. Maxson at the time also initiated what was called a Blue Ribbon Task Force. And I urged the university to consider reviving that. That Blue Ribbon Task Force was to examine the low retention rate of Pacific Islander students who did make it to the university. It's not easy coming here. And when you're here, you can be lost in this massive system. So that Blue Ribbon Task Force primary responsibility was retention, and then it shifted to recruitment. That's where art came in. Recruitment and outreach of Pacific Islander students all across the region and across the state. The community was also involved. Many organizations, like elders from KCF and Clinton Helenihi, Uncle Ka'ivi and Auntie Ka'alapang, and many other community leaders at the time were at the president's roundtable, talking to him and making visible our needs as students at the time. First time I had lomi salmon was when Auntie Ka'ala broke out her Ziploc bag and shared it with everyone in the room. It's not lost on me that PIA is still thriving today because of a community that stands behind it. Organizations, as I mentioned, like Couture and Chamorro Foundation, who show up. This is not their first gig here on this campus. They show up every time they're invited. So thank you, Heidi and Joe. And newer organizations, like Project Respect. Esther Malipola, the executive director, is here. And their work is primarily with young people, college-aged, working on mental health awareness for Pacifica students in culture and in language. That's the stuff that matters. PIAM, who's heard of the Pacific Islander Ethnic Art Museum? Raise your hand. Raise your hand. Higher, let me see you. This is the cornerstone of our village. Is PIAM, and it is right here in Long Beach on 7th Street and what's the cross street?
Alamitos.
Alamito and 7th Street. It's small but mighty. Why? Because the community built that. The community is still there. JP was telling me about the project he has. He is unweaving woven traditional mats and reimagining what that looks like for us in modern urban villages. So shout out to PIAM and JP. Oh, man, 33 years and running. PIA, and anchored by this guy right here. He comes up here and makes jokes, but he is the reason why PIA is still around. Solid. We owe him a solid. Woo! I want to challenge the administrators to recognize that this is our legacy. He needs to be retained too. If art's gone, who's gonna hold on to PIA? We have Anna, who's been a strong ally for PIA, but art is the foundation. Please consider some type of stipend or some type of, what do they call it for faculty? Sabbaticals, all right? Yeah, something to recognize that we as a community owe this man a big solid. Allow me to shift back to the ancestors. Our ancestors speak to us through our parents and our elders, and they speak to us in so many other ways. In our Pacifica culture, in Oceania, we embrace and celebrate those moments when we commune with our ancestors in our sleep, and they help us solve problems in our dreams. Or when that light bulb comes on about the symbols that you keep seeing around you, right? Those symbols, when they're illuminated, that's the ancestors speaking to you. Trust. Tap into that. Tap into your nga'au, your gut, and trust it because you already know the way. You know that you come from the greatest navigators and celestial star readers since time immemorial. You were made in power. You come with power. No one empowers Pacific people because we are power. In the Samoan indigenous reference, this experience in power is called luitau. The theory of knowledge and epistemology of luitau and other indigenous references are still being grappled by scholars. The literal translations of lui means to challenge. And as a standalone, the word tau means to fight, go to war, or you're in a battle. So the literal translation of the word luitau means challenging a fight or war. That explains the thinking behind the Polynesian posse naming. Now we all know that it's very difficult to translate Pacifica languages, Pacifica words, because we don't roll with just one or two words. Look, Art couldn't even pronounce my name. I mean, our names are like not even sentences, they're paragraphs. And why? Because we are an oral culture. And that's how we pass things down, through intentional and often ceremonial naming conventions and origin stories. So we don't do very well in literal translations. We tell stories to build context and integrate our history and lift up names of important people that have come before us. We owe it to them and our ancestors. Just as I have told you this long-winded story about the origins of Pia, it was really to cue up luitau through the experience on this campus. Rather than translating our languages, we interpret their meanings. And sometimes our critics have accused us of elaborate and elongated embellishing of our stories. We don't care, we still tell our stories. We tell them because they're ours to tell. So luitau, and after speaking to my parents this morning, because quite honestly, I had all these moving pieces of what to talk about today, but the ancestors didn't speak to me. I could not figure it out until this morning when I talked to my parents. And I was talking about Sister Lean's book launch last night. Ugly Silhouette is out. Author Charlene Silhouette Mulipula is here with us today. I was at her book signing last night. The most amazing community event. Everyone showed up for her. So much love for her. Congratulations, Lynn. So, luitau, in its most essential form, is our drive. It's our purpose. It's our agency. And like Dr. Karenga said, our self-determination. when challenged with a goal. So lu'ikau is the marriage of what your nga'au, what your gut is telling you, and the goal before you. And communing and collaborating with that goal in order to accomplish it. So lu'ikau is your relationship with creating the kind of life and experience that you want. Lu'ikau is simple, huh? No, it's not. It's very complicated. But we can do hard things, my peoples. We can do hard things. So we can deconstruct complex concepts about our culture and apply it to our lives today. We can do that. And I think I figured it out. So who likes peanut butter and jelly sandwiches? Okay. All right, at least a quarter of the room. So maybe that's not a good example. Right? Peanut butter and jelly with Spam. Right? So lu'ikau is peanut butter and jelly. Your peanut butter is your kuleana. That's your responsibility. In perfect alignment with the jelly, which is your pule, the decisions that you make. So kuleana and pule together like a perfect peanut butter and jelly sandwich with Spam is lu'ikau. I don't think I can explain it any other way. But the bread that holds it together, that holds that, and I know you students know it because I used to be a student and that was my budget. The bread that holds the peanut butter and jelly sandwich together are the expectations of our ancestors. So that's your kule'au, your peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Worthy to be served to anyone. Anyone. All right, this message today is my kule'au, is my lu'ikau, and my kule'ana. Because graduates, you are our aina, you're our land. You are our moana, our vast sea. You're our ea, our breath of life, our environment. You're our mauna, our mountains. You're our kanaka, our people. You are everything your parents and your ancestors dreamed of. So let's give a big applause to our graduates. You are more than enough. You are everything. You are everything. And because you are everything, your kule'ana will feel heavier after you leave here today. It's not just the leis on your shoulders. The reason why it's heavy and the reason why we stack it up to the ceiling is because we want to remind you about who you are carrying with that degree. Your kule'ana will be heavier after today. So feel that weight on your shoulders and embrace it because it's yours. And we will hold you accountable as a community because that's what the ancestors told me to tell you. Sometimes my interpretations are wrong, but I'm pretty accurate most of the time. Just so you know, I'm not the only one that's here to challenge you. I want to lift up Pacific scholars and authors right now. Oh, I was waiting to do this part of the speech. All the educators and leaders who came before us and whose wisdom has inspired all of us. Epeli Halofa, a visionary Tongan writer, famously said, "We are the sea. We are the ocean. We must wake up to this ancient truth. It barely challenges us not to think small and not to associate ourselves with just one island, but to claim the largest body of water in the universe, the Pacific Ocean.
Yes.
That's where we come from. And Ebeli Ho'ofa says, that's why we're Oceanians, not islanders. We are Oceania. Everybody repeat after me. We are Oceania.
We are Oceania.
Thank you to the smallest people back there, the loudest people. I heard you, little ones. 20 years from now, when I come back to talk to you. All right, so we have Ebeli Ho'ofa, a renowned Samoan writer, Albert Wen. Who knows Albert Wen? Who's heard of him? Been around for years. Albert Wen once wrote, "I must always remember that as a Pacific Islander, I carry the past, the present, and the future inside of me." He understood Luika, and he wrote about Luika in other English words. These words encapsulate the essence of our connection to our history, our ancestors through their struggles and their triumphs. They kept their luikau front and center and have paved the way for us to stand here, for you to stand here today, celebrating your graduation. Their stories, their sacrifices, and their resilience are woven in our nga'au, in our gut, like the laufala that JP is weaving, in our fine mats and baskets. Oh, and the laufala that's outside. A family prepared that sign for the Pacific Islanders Association. Amazing, beautiful, beautiful laufala. If you haven't seen the intricacies of that sign, stop outside and take a picture because that is history in the making. I think that's the first time I've seen a laufala prepared that way. So big ups to Pia for preparing that beautiful sign for all of us. So, yeah, Robert Wen, beautiful man. I grew up with his niece, Ronnie Wen, who's also an author. It's these stories that have to be told and retold by us, about us, for us, and everyone knows nothing about us without us, right? Nothing about us without us. So, lastly, the last Pacific scholar and author that I want to lift up is my first cousin, Sia Tomatai Figel, and she said, "Our stories are our swords and our shields, our prayers and our philosophies." That means we carry these stories that are powerful prediction models of how people of the Moana respond and react to things that happen to the people. If you haven't heard of SoCal Pickard and their response during the COVID-19 pandemic, look them up, PacificIslanderHealth.org. That was a collaboration of multi-sector Pacific Islander organizations that came forward, including leadership from Heidi herself, sitting right here as one of the main founders of SoCal Pickard. Moving strong, flowing through COVID, creating all of the messages that were in culture and in language and applied to all of our elders at the time. The protection of elders for us during the pandemic was paramount. And that's why many of our elders have survived today. So SoCal Pickard. Yeah, these Pacifica women leading the effort, I want to name them. My friend Heidi Charkulaf-Kingham, who also is a PIA member. Rita Scanlon, Alisi Tulua, Audrey Alo, and the late Kewan Young. Thank you, ancestors, for these women. If you want to know what lu'ikau looks like, talk to Heidi. Look up Southern California Pacific Islander COVID-19 response team, who are now called community response team as they ship with the times. All right, so, Pacifica people in our honorifics, we have to name everyone. That's just part of our culture. That's how we show gratitude. That's how we stay in community and continue to be in community. We come from a place of extreme gratitude. So we mention all your names. Graduates, may you carry the proverbial afimu, the torch, the life-dependent fire from one island to another as you go forward in your own voyaging, in your own journeys, whatever that looks like. You are ancestors in training. Remember that, if nothing else from today's talk. You are an ancestor in training. May you be blessed and bless others with deep, unapologetic aloha, unapologetic, and the kind of courage driven by the lu'ikau. You are uniquely gifted with the power, the koko'a'angu, or DNA, of the greatest navigators since time immemorial. Thank you, ancestors. Congratulations to the class of 2023. Hashtag you got this. Hashtag vote for Ian Tongi. I close you with that ancient chant and blessing. Soifua ma'emanuia.
I knew you were all gonna get it. She hasn't lost a step, beat. Me being the anthropology major that I am, there's a lot of cultural relativism going on in the room tonight. If you don't feel the mana, you need to eat more at the loft tomorrow. But our spirits, our ancestors are talking